I would like to see conservatives. I mean, I would like to see them, make more of an effort. I mean, appealing, the people don't like being
An effort to
discriminated.
do what?
Well, okay. Well, I mean, they do it in such a. I mean, they've tried to do this outreach, but the outreach is basically some kind of cargo cult of the Democratic thing. Well, they would appoint some black guy to something, talk about our community, say the Democrats are the real racist. There's a way to do this. For example, the discrimination against Asian Americans. People don't like being discriminated against. People will flip on that if they know, and that is raised in salience. So the fact that that's not more salient, that Republicans don't talk about, they don't talk about affirmative action. Period. They should defend whites too, of course. But the fact that they're not playing Chinese, language. The RNC isn't buying Chinese language. The Asians are going even without that effort. I mean, they voted out the San Francisco school board, and then you have these sort of um, and then you have these things like gender identity. I tell you, I have an elderly relative who liked Hillary Clinton for a while. And then I would tell her at some point in around 2010, she supports gay rights. She supports gay marriage or something like that. And my relative would say, no, she has a husband and daughter. Like, yeah, like of course, like she's a
Right.
normal human being. Like she could have said, well, 5 years later, this relative now there's no ambiguity about sort of the Democrats and the kind of identity politics they support, and then they this person watches Fox News now and is just buying everything that's being sold by Tucker and Hannity, and so the Republicans will not speak they'll say, oh, protect girls sports, protect Title IX, but you really can. There are some wedge issues here, and they're good. They're not demagoguery. I mean, I think they're appealing to conservative principles and positions that are true, that they could lean into, but they don't. I'd like to see that effort being made. You teach a class on conservatism, so this is, of
Let
course,
me
something
ask you
about.
this. I mean, do you think the Republicans could succeed in winning over a lot of, immigrant ethnic types from various backgrounds by effectively going back to a kind of 1950s, 1960s assimilation to a dominant culture expectation, the kind that I grew up with, which was this notion that, you come here and you take us as you find us. You're expected to adopt, not just in deed, but also in word, to our fundamental commitments to capitalism, to strong families, to, you know, uh, conventional behaviors, to bourgeois values, to the whole kind of Anglo Protestant legacy that's at the core of our identity, to, to hold the whole European identity. You have to try and be as much like us as you can. You don't have to stamp out every aspect of your cultural individuality, but you can't make a big deal out of them. In other words, just to put it more succinctly, we reject multiculturalism. We reject multiculturalism. I mean, do you think it's feasible for the Republican Party to really go back to that? I
I
would
would I
favor
would Well, Amy, I mean, I would do the opposite. I would say, no, don't assimilate. You stay like yourself. You believe in two genders. You hate criminals. You don't want your daughters to be sluts or have kids out of wedlock. You don't want your kids to be gender fluid. I think it's sort of become more like us. I think we're the problem. I think this is the fundamental thing. So I think there's an alliance to be built by saying, no, we're the real multicultural. Keep your culture. Be like white conservative people who are like every other group in the world against these freaks who run society. So I would almost do the opposite and see if that works. I think the assimilation message is sort of incoherent because when people look at sort of assimilate, they say, what's the difference between my immigrant background in America? The biggest difference is sexuality, is the fact that drugs and tattoos and divorce and homosexuality and out of wedlock childbirth, all that stuff is accepted. When you say assimilate but be conservative, it's almost incoherent because that's not what we are anymore.
Yeah, well, you're mostly talking about the whole gender sexuality valence,
But it's
right? Where
everything. It's also criminal. It's attitudes towards differences between men and women. It's marriage. It's sexual morality. It's criminality. I mean, it's the idea that you don't fetishize criminals. I mean, like say I said, my family being out of wedlock, having an out of wedlock child, being a criminal, like that was like the big. It was like a something shame, and people
so
just
law and order values, you think
yes.
is one
Yeah.
parameter. I mean, another one would be racial politics, and that's where I think the waters get really muddied, right? Um, how supportive will these immigrants be of, the strong meritocratic colorblind principles? They ought to be strongly supportive of it, but I think there's a certain degree of ambivalence about it because many of them come from very statist uh, backgrounds where they think the government ought to, ensure good outcomes and even equal outcomes and provide a very, very strong safety net and provide for their population. So, there are a lot of different parameters and a lot of different issues on which the Republicans are not necessarily going to succeed in attracting these groups.
But Amy, the white working class base of the Republicans does not like free markets either. I mean, they don't like
I understand. I understand.
so I don't think if
About
the, if
them too.
the
They
whites
love
could.
government handouts
Yeah.
and, support for local industries and, that sort of stuff. That's definitely out there. So anyway, very complicated. I don't know the
Yeah.
answers.
Well, it's fun. Yeah, it's
My tendency towards nostalgia is probably not terribly productive at this point.